Hello, Fractionate. This is Joe, and I want to start with a sort of a first things first here with you. And I just want to apologize for my absence on Thursday. Thursday morning, I slept in when I should have been there, and I really apologize, guys. I want to make this video in order to make it up to you and still go over the stuff that I wanted to share with QDKP. So this is our QDKP video. Again, I'm really sorry for having missed, I'm asking each of you to please forgive me. So we'll jump right into the video here, and I will share with you QDKP at a glance. So first things first, we're going to see that QDKP immediately requires some officers' permissions. So officers running QDKP will need the ability to edit officer notes in the guild as well as edit other guild infos. So we will need those, and I will assume that that will have to get taken care of when, if and when we decide to implement DKP for the guild using QDKP. We'll click that button and that'll open up QDKP, and you see that I have a raid session running here. So I'm going to close that session, and I'm going to just kind of kill that off and we'll not worry about it. The reason that session was already running is because I have messed up this video about 8 times already, and so I forewarn you now that if I mess up somewhere in this video, which is bound to happen, just stay with me. I'm sorry in advance. I don't do this professionally. I will do my very best to make as few mistakes as possible and respect your time. Otherwise, we'll just have to kind of painstakingly go through this together. And if I do mess up, I'll try and keep it minimal. So we will click on Start Session. We are about to raid. We're all collected together here in ICC. We're about to do a ICC, let's say 25-man raid. And if this started off in 10 because I'm currently in a 10-man raid. If I had been in 25, it would have automatically started at 25. Anyway, so we're going to start the Barons 25 raid, and that is now running, and we now have that in our raid log. So here's our the Barons 25. You notice we have a few mistakes here today. That's 1, 2, 3 that I recorded in my raid log. The others I messed up in other ways. So anyway, here we are, 25. We've got a started session. And the first thing I'm going to say is before the raid starts and as you start that session, you're going to want to start hourly bonuses if that's what we choose to do. And you're going to want to start an Iron Man bonus, which is something that I strongly encourage that we do, in fact, Iron Man, because that will award DKP to people who are there from beginning to end. That said, we're going to be able to give DKP at the death of a boss. We can also look for priced loots, which will check when a player loots an item that falls into one of the categories specified in the options file. I'm not going to go through the options file for now, and for now we're just going to deselect that. But we can actually say, hey, BOEs are actually reserved and BOEs are actually DKP spendable. We can do that in the options file here in QDKP. I'm not going to get into the INI file editing and all that stuff. Not going to worry about it for now. So straight away, we are going to go take a look at our roster. This is our bid manager. This is the current raid group of all players that are in the raid, even though this player here is offline. And we can also show the guild of only online and the guild everyone. You'll notice places here where items are purple and sometimes where they are blue. The places where you will see items as purple, this represents an alt of a character. And so, for example, Tevagald is an alt of Tevedon, and we will go ahead and set Tevin as an alt of Tevedon as well. Because we're in a session, sorry, here we are, we have an error. You can't add or clear alt relationships while you're managing a session, because you wouldn't probably want to do this in the middle of a raid. Fair enough. We'll go ahead and cancel that raid. No worries. So we'll go ahead and edit this player and make them an alt of Tev, and we'll say edit, and you're defining Tevanine an alt character of Tevedon, and we will say yes, we want to continue, and immediately Tevanine goes purple as an alt of Tevedon. We can also award Tevedon DKP straight from here simply by double clicking. You can also right click and quick modify, add 10 DKP or subtract DKP. You can also reset rating time, reset their DKP immediately, and set quick modify amount from 10 to, I don't know, let's say 150. And now if we go, we can quick modify and 150, apply, and send changes. We're just waiting for this to give us feedback that it's all finished. And I believe that that will now do, there we go, subtract 150 DKP or add 150 DKP. So we can now do that easily enough. And, that's how you can just simply quickly edit your DKP amount. We'll set this back to 10 for fun, and we'll move on. So now we have an alt. Let's talk about alts and mains. This is something that's important for us at Fractionate to discern for ourselves, for us to discuss as officers, and for us to move forward in a given direction. Here is the challenge. You have, let's say, for example, a player such as myself, where I raid purely with RTA. I raid on occasion with RTG to fill in when I can, if I'm not working, whatever. But for the most part, I'm an RTA core raider, and I'm an RTA player. It is wholly unrealistic and unfair for a player who is solely raiding with one raid group or the other to be competing with members of both raid groups. So a member who plays on both raid groups. Now, it's also unfair for that player who is playing on both raid groups to not get awarded for the time that they're putting in to help and play and enjoy the game with those progression groups. So, using that as the example, this is the path that I champion for Fractionate. This is what I recommend for us to adopt. It is open to discussion, and that is this. If we have players who have alts, instead of linking their alts in this way, let's say that Tevagald and Tevedon are playing in two different raid groups, this shouldn't be an alt. So now these two characters will accrue and earn DKP separately. Okay, so if I were to award DKP to Tevin or however we say this name, it will automatically go to Tevedon. And here's how we know that. If we go into our roster, our actual guild roster, and we show the offline since this player's not on, we're going to sort this by name. We're going to go look at Tevedon, and we see their DKP. So net 20 DKP, total of 30 DKP with 0 hours rated, and then Tevagald points to Tevedon. Now we know that this is an alt of Tevedon, and when we want to go see Tevedon's DKP, there you go. If this player is on when we award DKP, this pointer reference in the officer note will actually award the DKP to this player. So this number goes up by 10 or 150 or whatever we actually award as DKP for whatever reason, or it removes from this player. So when they bid, even when they bid and they are online with their alt, they bid, it's pulling out of this pool of DKP. It's removing DKP from this account. That's important. Now, if these are two separate players, for example, we just marked this player, but I didn't send the changes, so we're going to go ahead and do that, and we'll wait and see these things update. And when they update, we'll actually see this player's DKP be adjusted. And so once we then award DKP to this player, we'll see that as well. So DKP checks are now there, and this Tevin has no DKP. So let's go award them some DKP. So we're going to go back into our roster, and we're going to go into our guild. We're going to find that player, and we're going to award this player some DKP. So Tevagald gets some DKP. Let's quick add 10 DKP. And that's now been added. And we'll go back into our roster, our guild roster, and we'll go take a look at Tevagald that now has 10 DKP. Oh, I didn't send those changes. And that player now has 10 DKP. You see it uploaded and updated the note automatically right there for us. And this one just points to the alt, and this is the main. And you notice that the main did not get any new DKP. That's because this character is an alt of them, but this character is not. Again, we're awarding characters for these players for two different raid groups. This is the way that I would recommend that we at Fractionate handle this problem, where we have multiple characters and multiple mains that are raiding with multiple raid groups. Conversely, the other option is to allow people to accrue DKP and set all of their alts as alt status, and their main will get DKP, and they'll just have all the DKP to spend regardless of what raid group they're in, and that may create an unfair competitive environment for other raiders. Okay, so enough of that. We are finished with roster, with exception to awarding loot. So you see here we have our zebra leather. We're going to remove that, and I'm going to try and open, I'm going to try, here's the problems. They're already started. We're going to try and open our bags. There they are. My settings from live and my settings for Warmane are very different. So sorry about that. Moving on, we're going into our roster. We're going to go to the bid manager, and we're going to set some gear up for rolling. So let's start our session. First of all, we now have a raid group going. We've got our timer going. We've got our Iron Man bonus going, and we have killed a boss. Congratulations. We're now going to award loot, or we're going to roll loot, quote unquote. So here we are. Start the bid. You notice that the bid is empty until someone bids. The first thing we would do is we would want to find out if the guild wins the gear, right? Maybe we've got some pugs. And this is something that we need to talk about as well. If we are raiding with pugs, pugs do not want to raid without an opportunity to get gear. And yes, we can reserve certain things. Maybe we want to reserve heroic marks specifically, and maybe allow open rolls for pugs on other gear. So let's say that heroic spindle drops from the council, from the Prince Council, and we've got, let's say, 5 casters in the guild that want to win that piece of gear, and we've got, let's say, 1 pug in the group that wants to win that gear. All 6 of those players are going to slash roll, okay? So they slash roll, and let's say that the pug wins it. That's it. They had the odds stacked against them, 1 out of 6. The other 6 were rolling purely to try to win the gear for the guild, and the pug won the gear. Fine, let them walk with the gear. It's over, okay? The next option is that one of those other 6 people, one of the 5 guild members, did a slash roll, and they beat the pug. That doesn't mean that they won the gear. That means that the guild won the gear. Now the guild has to bid on the gear. So once the guild wins the gear, then we enter our bids. Now the gear goes to the highest bidder, and when that gear gets awarded, you select that player, you set the winner, you spend their DKP. Don't click award. You're not awarding them 1 DKP. You are spending their 1 DKP for this gear. Spend it. That's it. The DKP has been spent. Greed roll won this piece with 1 DKP. You then give that gear to the player the way that you normally would, and that's it. When you spend the DKP through this, you notice that it automatically updated. And when we go and have a look now at my DKP for Greed Roll, you'll see that Greed Roll now has 31 DKP instead of 32 DKP. I should have shown you that earlier, but that spend does work that way. So that's that. If you'd like to just quickly see it again, we can go into our roster, our bid manager, we'll start it again, I'll bid again, we'll set the winner again, we'll spend the DKP again, and we will go in and take a look at my DKP, and now it went from 31 down to 30. So that does work that way. Finally, I want to talk about the other items here that are on this list. So we have raid awards where we can award players DKP. So we're going to award DKP, 10 DKP. Maybe we do this per boss kill, or maybe we just do one big DKP dump at the end based on on the final boss. When we have killed Lich King Heroic, we award DKP because this is the expectation, is that we will kill every other boss on Heroic up to Lich King. And then at that progression boss, we award DKP. We should not be awarding DKP for bosses that should be, non-progression bosses that should be on farm. There's no point in giving people DKP just for killing bosses that we kill every single week. We are 8 out of 12 heroic. If we want to be 9 out of 12 heroic, we need people to bring their A game, and they need to be there. They need to be there on time. They'll get DKP for being on time. They'll get DKP for the hourly bonus, but they're not going to get DKP award for killing a boss that they kill week in and week out. That's silly, right? We want to award people for progression, right? So when we kill LDW, when we kill Putricide Heroic, when we kill Lich King Heroic, when we kill Sindragosa Heroic, those bosses should award additional DKP. Once we get those bosses on farm, we stop awarding DKP for those bosses, and then we only award DKP for one boss. That is the final boss, Heroic Lich King. At the end of the raid, everyone gets that amount of DKP, unless they leave. That way, when they come into the raid, they're getting their Iron Man bonus by killing Lich King, right? If they come in and then they leave, they're not getting any DKP. It doesn't benefit them to leave the raid early. It doesn't benefit anyone else if they leave the raid early either. So I find that that's very helpful. But if instead we want to subtract DKP for people that have to leave early, that's another option. You know, how to handle these, when to award and when to punish. These are things to be discussed. These are things that we have to figure out. Anyway, so we're going to award DKP, and we're going to give a reason that, let's say, LDWHC dead. So we awarded DKP, and we're going to send those changes. And now if we go look at our raid log, we see during this session, we see that we started the timer, we started our Iron Man, we started our bidding for a piece of gear, someone won it. They then purchased it with DKP, and we rolled it again, and someone won that piece, the second piece of gear, and they purchased it with their DKP. Then we killed LDWHC, and everybody got 10 DKP. That's raid wide. Everyone in this raid got 10 DKP awarded. So that is how the award works. The hourly bonus we talked about, there's a timer that's ticking that's awarding additional DKP by the hour for, you know, these long raids that are 2-3 hours, 4 hours sometimes. So they'll get an additional bit of DKP for being present during that time. And then finally, at the very end of the raid, if we awarded all of the DKP hourly, and this player was from start to finish at the end of the raid, they were there, then we're going to click finish. That's going to give everyone the Iron Man bonus that's in the raid if they were there from start to finish. And then we're going to close the raid session. And that's it. We have now ran a raid using DKP loot system. We awarded DKP, we spent DKP for gear, The only thing we didn't do during this raid encounter is subtract DKP for someone messing up. So let's talk about how that works. So we'll start a new session, and we're now in raid. We're started. We're officially in raid. We're ready to go. And now Greed Roll messed up a mechanic during during the raid. Let's say that I chased the Bone Stormer. I turned the boss. I'm a tank, right? So I'm on Greed Roll. Maybe I turned the boss toward the raid and it melee swiped a healer, and that caused a raid wipe. That's there was no reason to do that. I wasn't paying attention. I turned the boss toward the raid. Like this is something that absolutely should not happen. It's an egregious thing that happened during the raid and should not have happened. So we're gonna penalize Greed Ninja or Greed Roll here for causing a raid wipe. And we can do that in a lot of different ways, but we're going to remove 10 DKP. So Greed Roll spent 10 DKP. That's it. Too easy. Send changes. And now we'll take a look at the 10 DKP here that Greed Roll had. So remember, I had 30. I awarded myself 10 at the end of that other raid, right? That first raid. We just started a second raid. I haven't awarded anything. I messed up, and then I had to spend 10 DKP. So I went from 40 to 50, and now I've just spent my DK, or excuse me, I went from 30 to 50. I went from 30 to 10 for the award, 10 for the Iron Man, right? So that takes me to 50. We just started a new raid. I haven't been awarded anything, but I spent 10 of that DKP that I had. So I went from 30 to 50 down to 40 as a result of the mechanic failure that I just did. So that's how you quickly can subtract DKP or remove DKP from a player for a mechanics failure, for a raid failure. Too easy, right? All right, so now we're all finished. We're going to close our session. We want to issue the Iron Man bonus, and we're all done. That's it. We're finished. We don't have to send the changes again because when we finish, it updates. So now I just awarded myself that Iron Man bonus again. And so now if I go back and look, I should have actually had 50 here. I think maybe I failed to add the Iron Man bonus. Not to worry, if we failed to add the Iron Man bonus, it's not a big deal. Remember that we still have the raid log, right? So we are able to do a backup of the raid. And we can also go ahead and export the raid. We can export to text. We can export to HTML, which I used to find very handy back in the day. We'd export to HTML and post it on our guild website, and people could see openly what our guild DKP was. Very handy back then. Anyway, so here we are. Export this, and now we can go see where everybody is. We can go in later and fix the DKP, do a save, and everybody can still go about their merry way. So that's it. That's all I have for you. I want to end this the way that I started it and just say, guys, I'm so sorry that I wasn't there on Thursday. I'm also sorry that I made some mistakes during this video that you had to contend with. I hope this has been informative for you. I'd like to thank you for watching and end on that note. So thank you so much, and I will talk to you all again real soon. Bye.